Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here again.
So nice to have you once more. So in this episode, we're going to be continuing talking about the houses, and this time we're going for the second house.
Yes.
So this is, it's not the first house we looked at. It's probably not the first house that anybody looks at. However, it's a very important house to be looked at. And I think you would look at it most times if you're doing chart interpretations.
Absolutely.
So when we look at the position of the second house, so the second house is a succedent house.
Yeah.
And this means that it is one of the supporting houses for the angular house next to it, which in this case was the first house.
Yeah.
And we did do a podcast on the succedent houses. I'll put a link below on that if you want to explore more about those things. But it means it's a house that supports. And then on the hemispheres, it's actually it's in the northern hemisphere, so it's below, and it's on the eastern hemisphere, so it's on the eastern side of the chart.
Yeah. Which, of course, if you're new to astrology, it is exactly backwards from what you would think.
I know.
So just
tricky.
Throwing that out there. Yeah. Above the horizon is below the...
Yeah, that's south, yeah.
Below the line. And, yeah. Eastern hemisphere is what we would think of as the west coast of the chart.
I know, yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
But
anyway, so it's in the quadrant-wise, it's still in the first quadrant, so that's important. So that's the private self quadrant, and it's in the first triple division, so that's also in the me section. Mm-hmm. So this is a house concerned with supporting the first house, which is the ascendant. The first house, it's you. Mm-hmm. So it's really technically a position to support you. And there are many themes that we're going to talk about in a moment. These themes that we're going to mention will be modified by what else is going on in that house.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do a full second house complex, you want to consider, and I've got a list.
Yeah.
The sign on the cusp of the second house, any aspects to the second house cusp degree, any planets that rule the sign on the second house. Well, there will be some. It could be one or two. Any planets within the second house, we're going to talk about those. You'd also want to know if there's an intercepted sign within that house, because it does make a difference. And then points-wise, we'll be looking for lunar nodes, part of marriage, part of fortune, something like that. Right. If you're really stretching it, you could look and see if your prenatal eclipse was there. And any current transits that go through your second house will affect the themes and modify what's going on. So although the themes remain for everyone, they are modified depending what's going on in your own second house.
Right.
So we'll have a look at some of the themes for the second house.
Yeah.
So the first one I've got is possessions.
Right, for sure.
So this is your stuff.
Yep.
It's it's anything that you collect, and they say that you have a collection if you have 3 or more of an item.
Interesting.
And years ago, I started collecting little ornamental wooden birdhouses.
Oh, wow.
Then I had 1, then I had 2, suddenly I had 3. And I got the question, what's happening in this house? No more birdhouses coming here. So, but if you collect anything, I mean, perhaps you have a collection of something or other, or you collect vinyl records, or you collect china teapots, or...
Well, I mean, there's books, obviously, and...
the collection of books, or if you...
Plants, wow, yeah.
Yeah, or if you're doing art collections or wine collections or anything like that, or you're collecting old Beano magazines or something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I had a session at one point of collecting crochet hooks. I buy one everywhere I went. And I don't know why I bothered, but anyway, so I've got way too many. I know you can only use one at a time, but still, that's what collections are.
Yeah.
And then it's things that, because they are your possessions, it's the stuff you own, and it's also your emotional attachment and relationship to your stuff.
Yes, because as they said in Fight Club, the things you own end up owning you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So this is where we get to the hoarder thing. Everyone's right on the edge of keeping. You've got that stuff you're keeping because maybe you're going to need it.
Yeah, and then the thing with the storage lockers.
What's in your storage?
Renting a storage spot. Oh, God. And you're paying to have your stuff in another location. Yeah.
And that's second house stuff where you've got stuff that you can't get rid of because of the emotional attachment.
Yeah.
And Marie Kondo had a lot to say about this,
Yeah.
saying that if this item does not spark joy, you have to let it go.
Yeah.
And people can't let go of like a pebble that they picked up at a beach when they had a romantic weekend.
Yeah.
And they're attached to the memory of the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it is so interesting. And we're now in a digital age where, we used to have photo albums and
not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I still have old ones, but
nothing new.
No.
This is it.
And it's so weird to think too. I mean, I don't have kids, but just to think of like future generations of people my age who don't have, who do have kids, and they'll be like, what will they inherit, like an old iPhone that they can't get into that has like just all of their great grandmother's selfies in it? Like what? How? All of the pictures of the food she ate, the pair of shoes she didn't buy, a million pictures of her cat. Like,
well, this is it.
Yeah, just weird.
But
yeah, it's the things it's the things you possess or the things you collect that say something about you, because it's a meaningful, it's very connected to that first house, but it's those externalizations of your personality.
So it could be shoes, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, collections of shoes.
Well, the shoes have never been, but my thing's always been bags.
Oh, interesting.
I've got like
I'm the opposite.
I've got like 3 pairs of shoes, and I don't want to tell you how many bags I have, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Whereas I know other people will have like 15 lipsticks, and I just buy the same color all the time. So it's just,
I have 15. I only wear one.
Well, or I would have 15 of the exact same color.
Yeah. They're very, very close. Like if I go into MAC, there's this one, how they organize all the lipsticks by color. There's this one little zone where I'm like, ooh, that's my zone. And I'll like pick them all up and nope, have it, no, have it.
Yeah.
And maybe there's one new one that's just in that same range where I don't have it. And I'm like, okay, I got to get this one now.
There you go.
It's hilarious.
So this is your second house. This is your stuff. What stuff are you keeping and so on? So these basically is your possessions.
Yeah.
And it gets down to even things that anything really that you have bought or were given, like your bicycle, your rollerblades, and your car belongs in this house.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also your values and your self-esteem.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I think anything that has to do with your self-expression on an external level.
Okay.
Right.
So if we talk about values, it's what do you value, and it's what do you value more than money, which is the tricky one.
Yeah.
Because
apparently lipstick.
Well, when people say, well, what do you value? People say, well, what did you pay for that jersey? And you say, oh, that was $50. And then a decision is made, a quantifying decision is made. But whether or not people have more or less money than you is your values surpass that.
Yeah.
And it's what do you value in life apart from money?
Right. Because two people may have the same exact salary and live in the same city, but what they choose to spend their money on can be vastly different.
Yes.
One could feel like it's very important to own your property, and the other just would rather rent like a beautiful apartment that they could never afford to purchase.
Yes.
And one might not ever need a car, and the other might their car is an extension of their personality, so they need to have like the newest car, and it's
the flashiest, the shiniest.
Right, exactly. Or they spend all their money on entertainment, or they spend their money on their kids or clothes and expensive handbags
stuff,
and jewelry. Yeah.
Yeah, so it does show your values there as well, and also your personal standards that you will accept within people.
Yeah,
it comes down to integrity, and if he cheats on you, will you take him back? And
right,
there's your values.
Yeah.
How's your self-values there as well?
It could be a very shallow thing, like people judging other people based on their shoes or that kind of garbage. But
I do.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but also values like you judge people on how they treat other people, or
and how they treat their kids in public.
Yes, or do they, are they nice to the waiter, or whatever, or are they, do they speak badly of their exes? These kinds of things that really are very telling. Yeah. So it's not just a shallow thing, but.
Well, they say, don't they? If they gossip to you, they'll gossip about you. So
right.
You got that.
Yeah. And if the guy you're on a date with, has all a string of ex-girlfriends and they're all crazy, well, that's
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a great sign.
That's not a good one.
No.
I think the big thing with the second house is this business of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's your attitude towards money and finances. Many of these attitudes were learnt at your mother's knee. I'll go back to that, because we all were brought up. And if you were brought up to say, oh, we can't afford that, that's your inner dialogue going through.
Yeah.
Whereas you maybe were spoken to, well, if you want it, you have to earn it, or something like that, or yes, you can have anything. So there are different inner dialogues surrounding money, and this is shown through this second house as well, your attitude towards it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also shows your earning potential, because the second house is money you earn when you work for a regular job. You work for the man, you get a pay, and you get paid. So if you've got multiple planets in the second house, you are likely to have multiple jobs at the same time. And when you get a transit through the second house, depending on what the planet is, income is likely to come in the nature of the planet that's going through your second house.
Yeah.
It also is concerned with the credit you can attract, which is different to the credit you carry on your credit card. That's eighth house.
Right.
So the credit you can attract, this is your FICO score. What have we got? What's the numbers? I don't know, 800 and something.
Equifax or whatever. Yeah.
Or whoever they are. And you've got a number between 500 and 900 or something. I don't even know how it works, but whatever it is. So you've got to have a certain amount, you've got to have a certain number. But your credit is, how much will the credit card company give you on your credit card? So if they give you $1,000, that's your second house credit limit.
Right. Because that is the value that the bank is putting on you.
Yes.
That's how much they're willing to trust you.
That's how much you can attract. And it could be $10,000. I don't know what it is, but everyone's got a different one.
And it's not about the credit you're racking up, that the debt you have. It's literally about the
how much they're going to offer you.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you've got good planets in your second house, they will offer you more. And you've got this great credit and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's only when you load your credit card and it becomes a debt that it becomes an eighth house thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't mean if you've got more credit, say you've got 5 credit cards, or that is second house, that they are willing to give that to you. But once you load the credit up, it's what you do with it.
So much like a gift.
Yes. And as I say, if you've got good planets like Jupiter or Venus in that second house, they're going to say, oh, yeah, we'll give you an extra credit. Oh, sure, you can have a loan. Or, yeah, we'll get a bigger house. Yeah. And on it goes,
Yeah.
So it's what you're attracting financially that you're attracting to yourself. And it goes the same for what you're earning at work, where, you take a job and they say, oh, we're going to pay you $1,000 a month or whatever it is. You will attract good incomes and good jobs if you have good planets in your second house.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about the planets in a moment.
Yeah.
And then savings.
Yeah.
It shows how you save, second house, or if you save, or what you save up for, or what you consider a cushion, or whatever. Anyway. Yeah. And then, of course, it's got to do with your spending habits. What do you spend your money on?
Right. Yeah.
And I've got to say, my spending habits have changed, the older I've got. When I was younger, I'd just spend on anything I fancied.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, I don't need this or that, except that bag, maybe. But, yeah.
For sure.
So what do you spend on, and so on, in the nature of the actual sign as well?
Yeah. The sign on the cusp of it.
Yeah. And then we get to something called donations, because it's what you do with your money.
Yeah.
Do you donate to XYZ charity? Do you give to the guy on the street corner? Do you do your December giving? I don't know. Where do you give? Where do you give and provide financial support?
Yeah.
Money's a big thing. And as an astrologer, people are always interested to know about, well, love and money, but money is very much a second house thing, because will I get a job? And when I do, will I get the pay?
Right.
Because even though jobs are second house and careers are 10th, you get paid in both, but the pay comes in the second house.
Yeah.
And those planets will influence how the money comes, what you do with it, and how you feel about it. So it's a very interesting situation.
It really is, yeah.
I've also got self-worth in there and self-esteem.
Yeah.
So they say it's net worth and self-worth, basically.
Yeah.
How do you feel better about yourself when you've got money in the bank? Or do you feel good about yourself regardless of what's in the bank? And that can be shown in the second house too. So, yeah. So, I don't know.
Or do you, go into debt in order to feel good about yourself and then feel bad about yourself?
Well, yes. I mean, buyer's remorse is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That shopping addiction and.
I know.
Yeah.
So let's just have a look at some of the planets. Well, all of the planets in the second house.
Yeah, that's great.
So we would start with the sun in the second house.
We would.
Okay, so some ideas I have about when the sun's in the second house. This is someone who is a confident earner.
Yeah.
They generally will have financial success in life and material security.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anyone who's got the sun in the second house? I mean, I don't. Do you?
No, I do
not.
I do not. And
well, the sun is always a good planet. It's going to support. Enough money will come.
Yeah,
I believe. They're confident in their earning capacity. It's not really an issue.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be successful financially, whatever they tend to do. And they would have the confidence to have self-worth, I believe.
I think so. Yeah, that definitely tracks.
Yeah.
And maybe they feel more confident in their finances than it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter that they are not earning more than you. It's just that they are actually more comfortable with whatever that level is.
Yes.
So it's not like if you have the sun in the second house, you're going to be wealthy. It's just that you're
satisfied with life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And more able to live within your means and to make those means go farther and, not become embroiled in. And also this, obviously this would have to do with the complexes that are involved with the sun. So if your sun is, opposite Neptune in the 8th house, well, that'll definitely affect the flavor of that.
But I think that these are people who are not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
They earn their money, they put food on the table, and sun in the second house.
Yeah.
Things are good.
Yeah, they're secure in their finances and their self-worth.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's quite a great placement for the sun.
Yeah.
And then if we look at, say, the moon in the second house, some of my thoughts are that this is someone who's careful with money.
Yeah.
But they have a fluctuating income because where the moon is, it waxes and wanes, and so does the money. So you'll have, 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine or whatever it said. But they feel good about their money when they've got it.
Yeah.
So it is attached to feelings.
Yes.
So perhaps when times are tough, they're not feeling so good.
Right. And this might be someone who would overcompensate with credit cards or gambling or something, or shopping.
I'll go and buy something to make myself feel good.
Yeah.
Tricky one that. Moon in the second is a very tricky placement because money it comes at the full, but it also does then go away. So you've got to manage it well and consciously bring something to bear and not let the mood take you.
Right. And there might be guilt complexes around money as well. You might have had, depending on, the issues with the mother, obviously that's, they have to do with the moon. So, maybe the mother was very controlling about your spending habits when you were younger, or possibly you had money when you were growing up and you were made to feel guilty about it when you got older, went off to college or, moved out or maybe married beneath your station, so to speak, or, your friends at college were, kind of thought of you as like the, you came from money, so you wouldn't understand this or that. So it's possibly something
interesting.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit in there.
Yeah.
Mercury in the second house. So this is somebody who is likely to discuss money and talk about it all the time. Yeah. So it's a great placement for a financial advisor because they know what the interest rate is and blah blah blah.
Those stock market bloggers.
Yes. And this is someone who's interested in the deal, in the actual negotiating, bargaining, bartering, getting it at less 10% because of something or other. And these things don't interest me. But anyway, something like that, definitely knowing the value of it. And informational wealth where what they know is their currency almost.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely, making their money through communication
from just knowing stuff.
Yeah,
and I don't have this either. I mean, neither do you, right? We don't have these placements, no. Mm-hmm. And then how about Venus in the second house? Mm-hmm. This is a good placement because it's in its own natural house.
Yeah.
So here I'm saying the Midas touch, that really money just keeps coming. Everything they touch turns to gold, basically. Money comes in. People give them credit. They attract finances. They attract stuff
Yeah.
Gifts, even possessions. And this is the person who's likely to be purchasing art and investing in art and going to auctions and buying Chippendales and whatnot.
I'm thinking of this one friend of mine, and I of course don't know where his Venus was, but you'd go to his apartment, and this is in our, early 20s. We were broke, whatever.
I know.
We worked together. But you go to his apartment, and his apartment was just so lovely. And you would just want to sink down into the carpet and just sit around the coffee table. And it was just a couple of little beautiful pieces of art. And it was just so cozy and lovely. And just a tiny bit of furniture. And it was always just impeccably clean. And just wonderful. Yeah. So, maybe that kind of thing where you don't have a lot, but what it is just lovely and well appointed, and everyone, assumes that you have exquisite taste and you put up a good front. And
So it's, the handle, money keeps coming. Yeah. It's like a tap turning on, I think. All right. So let's move on to Mars in the second house. So some of my thoughts here are that money burns a hole in your pocket. It comes in, but it goes out fast if you're not careful. So this is the person who's a financial risk taker.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll take a chance on whatever it is, or bet on something or something like that. But they have a positive earning potential.
Yeah.
That they go out, get a job, get paid, and move on. It's.
I'm thinking of a lot of people I know who work in the hospitality industry, and they
get tips.
Yeah, and the money just comes and goes, and they go from working in a restaurant all day, and then they go to a restaurant or a bar and hang out and chatter for hours, and
I do.
Yeah, the balance sheet is just constantly
up and down,
kind of fluctuating.
Yeah. So if the money comes in, we live again, and if it doesn't, well, we'll wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's Mars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with Jupiter in the second house, this is also a great placement. So I'm saying lucky with money.
Yeah.
Money is likely to come, and they're likely to earn really what they're worth, if not more. And this is where we've got the law of abundance coming in. That law of abundance that if you open yourself up, it will come to you.
Right.
This tends to be Jupiter second house placement where it just keeps coming, and they just, what's the big deal?
Yeah. In the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've got huge growth potential and growth of financial growth.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds wonderful.
Forrest Gump, investing in that little fruit company in Apple, next thing you know, he's like a trillionaire.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the rest of us, we're just thinking, where does it come from? And it just keeps coming for them. Yeah. And then how about Saturn in the second house?
Yeah.
So here I'm suggesting they're a cautious spender.
Yeah.
They don't often pick up the tab, this person, but they're in it for the long haul. So this is the person who's saving their pennies, and the pounds look after themselves, and frugality is their rock, because being frugal is how they're going to overcome financial hardships for the long haul. When they're old, they will be fine.
Yeah.
But it's not flashy money at all.
Yeah.
It's still,
Yeah, definitely not a risk taker.
Beans and rice, or that's what old that guy says. Yeah. So frugality, but still, they've probably got more money than you see, because if you measure a person by what they're wearing or how they behave or spend, you're not going to see it with Saturn.
Yeah, the flashy handbag and shoes are not.
The Birkin or the Workin even now, right?
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yeah. So Walmart just came out with a knockoff of the Birkin bag.
Oh, no.
And it's called the Workin. And they've sold out.
That's hilarious.
I know.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the convergence of two things I have absolutely nothing.
You don't know about handbags? What?
Not handbags and not Walmart. Somewhere outside of those two Venn diagrams. Over here.
Well, there you go.
But that is hilarious. I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
That's very funny.
The Workin, yeah.
The Workin.
So how about Uranus in the second house?
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting here innovative money-making ideas.
Yeah.
You never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
Financial freedom. What does that even mean?
Right.
It means they, do what they want, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not part of the
No, these are not.
race.
No, this is not the person who's got a budget and he puts 10% in this envelope and whatever they do. and exciting income ideas. So I think they're quite happy to live with what they have, what they don't have,
Yeah.
because the future is bright. This is Uranus.
Yeah, and if you look at their lifeline of finances, it's gone up, it's gone down, it's been like
sideways.
Just a.
Yeah. And it doesn't bother. It doesn't faze them.
Yeah. I mean, they may, not like the times that they're not making a lot of money, but they're fine. They'll be fine. Yeah. And there's a lot of ingenuity, and I would say untraditional mothering, possibly a non-traditional mother.
Okay.
My mother has this in her chart. She was a non-traditional mother, and she had a very, very untraditional mother. My grandmother was super untraditional, so.
And what was her philosophy on money? Was it when it's there, you can spend it? It
was definitely a sort of for my grandmother, it was beatnik artist sort of traveling in a school bus, and that whole 1960s
non-traditional
thing. So my grandmother definitely raised my mother in a very alternative sort of fashion, and I was obviously my mother grew up kind of a hippie flower child, and I was raised in that sort of vein. But I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so it wasn't so much like we weren't in a commune or anything like that. But I definitely had those sort of hippie egalitarian, like money is not it's not what makes the world go round. Love is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? But you need money, but don't be a slave to it. And it's not the most important thing in the world. And be nice to other people, and
those are your values. Yes.
That Sesame Street thing.
And then what about Neptune in the second house?
Yeah, what about
coming close to home now? So loses track of the cash. Doesn't know where the money went. Financial idealism.
Yeah.
And creative income now and again.
Yeah.
So you're nodding.
I am. I do have this.
This is you. So losing track of cash. It's just that this is the placement where money just kind of drifts away, and people say, "Oh, but the check's in the post."
Yeah, there's that, but also it's funny because
do you not know down to the penny how much you have in your bank?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
absolutely not. And
you never have.
When I was broke, I tried to. I would try to. And those were the times where it would be, something had happened and somehow I was incurring these charges at the bank, and then I would kind of have to call the bank and be like, what happened? And they'd be like, oh, well, this, you deposited it, but it was like 2 minutes after 5 p.m., so it didn't go in until Monday. And I'm like, what? But then I was, that kind of stuff happened a lot in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So, but once I actually started to not be on the financial knife edge of poverty, which was, after college and whatever, it was a luxury not to know. It was like, I don't have to know how much money I have in the bank because I know there's enough. And I don't mean there's tons. I just mean, you know what I mean? Like there's enough that there's enough that it's not going to, I'm not going to go into overdraft,
Right.
So therefore I don't want to know how much is in there because it's fine.
Okay.
That's for me. That's when I started to feel like I had arrived in, in a financially secure status that I didn't have to know how much money was in my bank account because it was fine.
And that's Neptune.
That's Neptune. Exactly.
You don't need to know.
Yeah. Because I don't care. It's fine. It's fine. It's enough. It's fine.
There you have it. So there's Neptune in the second house.
Yeah.
No, but you're living your chart, you see.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
And I know I've said this before, but it is true. As soon as I started making enough money that I didn't feel like I was constantly on the verge of, not being able to pay my rent or something, everyone else around me benefited. I started giving money to homeless people. I would buy drinks for my friends.
Yes.
I helped
so Neptunian,
my
the
friend
homeless,
who needed a rescue.
drinks.
He was living in New York. He couldn't afford his apartment anymore. And I rescued him and brought him back home, and I was like, pack up your dog and cat. I'm buying you a plane ticket. I don't think about paying me back. It's not important. What's important is that my friend isn't stranded in New York City by himself.
I see.
Pets,
there you
out
go.
on the street, homeless. So yes, that
so
is
Neptunian. So Neptunian.
And I always donate everything, used things, whatever, books, clothes. I'm constantly taking stuff to wherever you donate things to.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't like wasting anything. That's a Neptune in the second house thing.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
And then we get to Pluto in the second house.
Yeah.
So strategic wealth amassing,
Yeah,
money is power, and transformational income potential.
totally. And I can't think of their charts right at this moment, and I'm not going to go into a internet rabbit hole about it. But I know that a few of the billionaires who I have looked up their charts have had Pluto in the second house, and
they say it's the sign of the millionaire. I've got put my hand up to this one, I'm afraid.
ooh,
I know, and I'm not a millionaire, but I believe I will be. Strategic wealth amassing, strategic, but very different to the Neptune in the second. I know to the cent.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Daily where I am.
Wow.
Absolutely, there's no such, nothing slips past me at all, and it's just the way I do it. It's I don't have complicated accounting systems. I've got in and out, and if something goes in, it goes in that column. If it goes out, and that goes in that column. But I've got a running total all the time.
Wow.
So I know exactly where I am.
That is interesting.
I know. That's why, I can,
Yeah.
Things I don't want to talk about on the podcast. But anyway, I'm aware of where the money's coming from and where it's going, definitely. And anyway, but still, strategic wealth amassing. No, I'm not a millionaire, but they've always said it was the sign of, because you've got power over money.
Yeah, yeah. Totally.
So I don't know. It just also seems to come. And then finally, I was looking at Chiron in the second house. Tricky.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, this is a sign of someone who's got financial insecurity. And just even making a living becomes a source of pain as well. And the question really is, am I worth it? So this is your person who goes to a job, gets a job at Joe Bloggs' widget factory. Yeah. They're paying them $1,000 a month. They're saying, they're paying me too much. Am I really worth this? And you've got that imposter syndrome coming through.
Yeah, that's right. Interesting.
And even though they are worth it, because that's the going rate for a widget person, the question still arises. Yeah. So they tend to, Chiron is always a gift in a chart. So it could be that the gift is money, but they are very frequently likely to gift it on.
Yeah.
And give the donation saying, well, I don't need all this extra whatever. Let me help it. But this really needs to be put through in a positive way. This person will be better off building a business and employing people and paying them that way. So taking all that money that they can earn.
Be a job creator.
Yeah, be a job creator and pay it forward that way rather than saying, no, don't pay me too much to start with.
No, exactly. Yeah. Because
so
it's that self-worth thing.
It really is.
It may not be the best, the most ideal form of value of a person, of a human being, but it is what we have.
Exactly.
It is what it is the currency that is, the measure of, unfortunately, means in our society.
Is. Yeah.
So finding a way to turn that into something good. If you think of money as this, sort of unseemly kind of thing, which you may, if you have Chiron in the second house, find a way to turn it into something positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one way to do it. Yeah.
All right. I haven't done a little Stephen Forrest quote in a while, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to quote from The Inner Sky, The Dynamic New Astrology for Everyone by Stephen Forrest. And he just has a great way with words. So I'm going to just throw out a little quote that he has about the second house. So he says, second house influences create a crisis of self-respect. According to the signs and planets involved, we may feel dumb or clumsy or unattractive. And the way we choose to resolve that insecurity becomes a key life theme. If we respond negatively, a compulsive kind of materialism can warp our consciousness. We seek to alleviate our self-doubts through the manipulation of physical circumstances rather than through working directly on the problem. Sometimes money becomes a symbol of a confidence that we need. We pursue it relentlessly. We advertise how much of it we've accumulated, but the pain remains. So, a successful navigation of second house terrain always involves proving oneself to oneself. We compensate for inner doubts through a disciplined effort and concrete accomplishments. A busy second house can be the weakest possible astrological structure or the most resilient. Everything depends on how the individual copes with the pressures that it generates.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
It really has to do with self-worth and self-perception, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
How do we feel about ourselves? Do we feel worthy?
Yeah. And our society makes it very, very difficult to do that without financial security.
Because you still got to pay the rent.
Yeah, and it's not just us living
even
in a
if they
very
keep
expensive
putting it
city,
up.
which we do, right? But I think everybody everyone who's listening to this podcast, anyone who has the technology to be listening to a podcast, probably has,
to pay the rent.
Lives in a modern society where everything has to do with money and.
Yeah. Well, we're not bartering 2 chickens for a pig anymore.
No,
so I mean,
no.
but
exactly. Someone probably somewhere is, but yeah,
we're not. Yeah, no, not yet.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've spoken about the second house. We've looked at several of the themes that are in the second house. We've gone through all of the planets when they are placed in the second house, and this is really an introduction, and you can certainly find out which planets you've got in your second house. Mm-hmm. So if you found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who would be interested. Make sure you're getting our newsletter, and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. And make sure that you're following Arwynne, and you can find her at...
I'm at mspink.net. That's www.mspink.net. And I publish a weekly newsletter every Saturday. I'm writing about art and music and movies and history and society and anything that interests me. And it's a good read.
So super interesting, yeah.
Thanks.
So make sure to follow Arwynne there. So Arwynne, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. This has been great.
And thanks to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the 2 main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there, or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.